evening, Meticulous Moments audience. We are so excited to have you with us this evening as we have an amazing, super special guest with us. And he's none other than Ant Glynne. He's an international rock star and he's worked with the following bands: Mike Oldfield / Asia, Rick Wakeman. He's also a former swan song artist, and his band Midnight Flyers toured with AC/DC for 2 years, as well as Bob Seger. He was also produced by Kit Lambert. But above all of the things that we listed here now, he is an incredible human being. And I had the privilege of meeting him this week. And we want to come to you this evening, Meticulous, and bring you a few pointers out of his life story. Pretty soon we are going to hear at Meticulous put his life story together in a novel, and it is just such an amazing journey that he's had. So I want to welcome you personally. Good evening, and welcome at Meticulous Moments.
Good evening, Juanita. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for hosting this, and let's go.
Let's do this. I've got a few pointers, that I want to raise after our edifying conversation yesterday. And I want to ask you, how did your music, legacy, I'd really call it, start? How did all of that fall into place for you?
Okay, well, I've been playing guitar, since I was 10. And on just the day before my 16th birthday, my best friend, Gordon Barton, he came and woke me up after a long weekend in Paris, and I was asleep, and we had a backdoor policy. So he just came into the back door, and wake up, you're moving to Brighton and you're coming to play with Leo Sayer tomorrow, and I went, okay. And, as I had all my 8 O-levels to take, but I didn't. I just left the following day on my birthday. My mum, okayed it because she knew that it was my passion, and what, even she talked to my school teachers and I let him go. So, he has to go. So, and then, then I did. That was literally a edit in a film. There I was, one situation, and suddenly, poof, I'm out in the summer. Best summer of 1973. We lived in Brighton in this 4-story beautiful house, and rehearsing on the end of the West Pier, which was shut down because of security, because it wasn't safe, and of course they let us rehearse at the end of it.
I love that. That's amazing.
I actually climbed up the mast. Just was like a big light for the ships, and I didn't realize. I was 16. What do I know? I shinned up there, stole it, took it home to my the house, and had it as my bedside lamp. But it was like 16 bulbs, and you walked in my room and it hummed. So the manager and the policeman came by like a few days later, and they said, "Can we please have our lamp back?" Anyway, and then Adam Faith, who was a manager, wanted to manage me as a solo artist, but I didn't have a clue about anything. And unfortunately, he had a serious car crash on the last night of the band, and it was a bit of an out to lunch bunch band. I was the youngest, so I was, Anyway, so I hung around and everything, and it didn't happen. So I moved back, and then I set up a band, but we didn't have any songs. So poor Adam and my friend Dave Courtney turned up to see our band, because I told him, "Oh, I've got a band together," but he didn't ask me, "Do you have any songs?" And I didn't. But I wasn't able to bullshit my eyes, because I should have just said, "Come on, guys, just play," because we could jam on anything. That's what we were. But I didn't have any actual songs, and I froze, because, and also Adam Faith, he was on crutches, right, after his, he had a really bad car accident.
Oh.
And we were rehearsing upstairs with a spiral staircase, an iron spiral staircase. So, I heard him coming in, clunk, 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 clunk. And he finally goes and he said, okay, what you got? And I just sort of said, well, we haven't got any songs. I just thought we were coming to meet. And that was my first lesson in, fake it before you make it. I should have said, okay, let's play what we got. And we'd just look at each other and just start something, anything,
Wow.
But so anyway, he wasn't very impressed with it. So he just went back down, clunk, clunk, down the stairs again. It was like, call us when you got something, And so that was quite an interesting experience.
Absolutely. I'm
Anyway.
sure you will never forget that. Going up all the way and going back down.
But having said that, the time with Leo Sayer, we had some great shows, and I mean, Adam Faith was like likening me to Eric Clapton, which when my mum came down and stuff. So he really, really, I mean, it was interested in me being, but I guess, I mean, it was just a communication error.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but that happens. That happens. Yeah. I want to ask you, the members of your band, you were pretty close for you to just get up and say, well, I'm going, away with you. I'm not going to complete my studies. You were pretty close.
Yeah.
Tell us more about the relationship with band members.
Well, my mum, was a continuity girl. She's actually the most credited continuity girl in the British film industry ever. She just passed away last year, and she's done like 140 or 50 credits of movies and some TV. And then, she worked with Led Zeppelin on the beginning of Song Remain the Same, one of the Peter Grant and Richard Cole gangster thing when they... that sequence. She worked on the end of Yellow Submarine with the live action for 5 minutes, and I grew up with a picture of her next to my toaster, and she's standing with her back to the camera with her script, and she's got the four of the Beatles like looking at her, and so she introduced me to the Beatles, as it were.
What a blessing! Your mom was a pretty good lady.
Oh yeah, I mean, and then she worked with the Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger twice. Simply for the Devil, which was John Luke Goddard. It was originally called 1+1, and then halfway through the filming, the lighting gel actually set on fire and burnt the Olympic Studios pretty much down, and they had to rebuild it. And John Luke Goddard disappeared, but my mum's in that film. She's sitting in the studio, and so she's featured in the film. And when you go into the Olympic Studios, they have a clip, and she's there. So that's forever.
That is so cool.
She worked with Mad as well, but her real career started back in Hammer days, before the horror movies. She did like Quatermass and the Pit, Brief Encounter, The Nanny. Wow. Amazing film she did. So. Yeah.
What an inspiring woman. She made history, and I believe you mentioned that she reached the age of 95, which is an amazing age, to reach.
Yeah, she died this time last year, so it's still a bit fresh. But she went in and sleep.
Oh, beautiful.
Didn't wake up.
Beautiful.
And I spoke to her like 2 hours before, and she was so up. She had events. She was being invited to, speak, have events. A little movie about her career and stuff.
Yeah.
And she main thing is she just let me have my whole. She never held me back when it came down to my creativity.
Yes.
She I mean, that's why. And when I said, Mum, I want to leave school tomorrow, go down to Brighton, play. She had a couple of, she had got together with the crew with the movie she was working with, and then she talked to my form master at school. Yeah. And he was a musician before he became a teacher, and he said, "Oh, you got to let him go." So I mean, I wish I had actually completed my O levels because I'd already taken the mocks, but you know, I had no interest. You know, it was all so. This was like, you know, super.
That was, and I believe, you know, moms have intuition, because I'm a mother myself, and we work with our children intuitively. That I can say, and I know there's women in the audience, moms, that agree with me, that, you know, we know what our children want and need, and she wanted the best for you. She wanted you to follow your dream, and that's commendable.
That was the most amazing thing. Luckily, she was in Ireland at the time, so I could have gone anyway. No, but I would never have done that, you know.
Yeah.
But no, it was the most amazing. You know, I mean, I was literally living my dream.
Yeah.
You know, with a band, with a beautiful house. We had rehearsals. We were like a real close, you know, unit.
Family. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. What's your favorite memory about playing in the band? And I mean, you've played with so many bands.
Yeah, I mean, there's too many to mention. One artist I worked with, Roger Chapman from the band Family, and we did a lot of stuff in Europe. And we used to have shows. I mean, he literally it was a R&B band, soul, but kicking, and then and you know, look anyway. Roger would just look at me, point to me rather, and say, "Anthony," and I'd sort of just have to improvise solo, built, and then everything would come down, and yeah, it was so I had so much creative freedom there.
Wow.
That was one of the I had one of my best shows with him. But you know, touring with AC/DC for 2 years and having my own little 15-minute spot where I did wherever I want, that was also very cool. You know, in front of like 20, 30,000 people. That's just, you know. And then Mike Oldfield was amazing as well. You know, when I first met him, you know, we were friends. I met him on their AC/DC tour and we became friends. I saw him another time. And then 6 months later, you know, his personal assistant saw me in a guitar shop. He says, "And Swan Song's closed down. You know, Brike's been trying to get hold of you. Give him a call tomorrow." So then and then I, you know, first he asked me if I want to do some shows. I said, "Yeah, sure." Then the next day he says, "Ant, do you want to come and record, do some stuff in the album?" I said, "Of course." It was like boom, boom, boom. And he had some parts for me, but mostly he just let me add my own stuff, which was beautiful, you know. I mean, he left me in the studio for like.
There were no cell phones. Those days there were no cell phones, so you just, if you saw them,
it was landline. It was, yeah, landline, and we, you know, we didn't. Well, I didn't think to ask for his phone number.
Yeah.
You know, so it was just it was such an amazing coincidence that Jeremy Parker, Mike's assistant at the time, you know, he just recognised me, and I only met him because Mike sort of introduced me to him, as we talked about before, at this Ross Kildare festival, and you know, he wanted to give me something, and he had to leave, so Jeremy, you know, brought that thing to me, and then that's how I met Jeremy. So if I hadn't had that thing, I wouldn't have, you know, he wouldn't have known necessarily who I was. So it was so amazing that and then Mike and I, we get on really well. As I say, he on the Crisis album, he you know, he just said, I'll come back in a while. I'm in the studio and I'm recording new parts. I knew what I had to do, you know, a record, and came up with all these, you know, harmonies and stuff and parts, and you know, rocked up the track Crisis because it was cool, but it just needed some rock accents in there and stuff. And then it was just, I mean, that they were glorious times as well. You know, I mean, we went down on Shadow on the Wall, which was quite a big hit all around. We went down to the pub, and you know, we had lots of beer. Then we came back and did the live duo guitar center, you know, guitar solo, you know, quite in a very, you know, high inebriated state. That gave the sort of, you know, the craziness in it. So it's you know, I mean, and also one time, bless him, when he said we were sitting. This is another time we were sitting in this pub, And he said, I've been listening back to Tubular Bells. It's so out of tune and everything. But that was the beauty of it. There was no auto tune back then,
Yeah,
and I mean, but that brings me to another quick point I want to make
yes,
is
yes,
that singers back then, you know, I mean, you because with the auto tune and everything, it probably suits the music now because it's all
yes.
homogenic or whatever.
That's it.
It's like homogenized.
That's it.
Whereas back then,
Yeah,
singers used to go up and down, but
yeah,
that sort of gave it more organism. You didn't. I mean, if you hear the best singers, you don't
yes,
even know that they're slightly flat or
yeah.
slightly sharp, but because it's the expression
That's it. It's
that you
art.
don't.
Yeah,
Well, it's just natural talent, and
that's
and
it.
and sometimes you want to push the note a little bit more because it gives more. I mean,
Yes.
one of my favorite happy accidents is Keith Richards on Let It Bleed. Well,
Oh,
we all need someone, right? And at the very
yeah.
end, he's doing this little slide bit. Right, he does that
Like a
over and
rip.
over and over,
Yeah,
and I always wait for it. About the seventh one, or maybe the ninth
yeah,
time,
yeah.
his slide slips off. It slips off the neck and he goes and it goes up an extra note, and it's a happy accident because it makes if you actually analyze it,
It's
it's
authentic.
well, it's like a minor ninth or something like that
Yes,
if
yes.
you're in C.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be a G C, but in fact it goes G C sharp.
Oh,
Just
I thought G70. Yeah. So that sharp goes,
no,
ah,
not a seven. It's actually a flattened note. But the thing is that I wait for that
yeah,
note all the time,
yeah.
and because you certainly didn't do it on purpose. It just slips off the neck. But they said, keep it, keep it. You had to because it had this
That's it.
extra, pulling out, and you just don't get that these days because it's
No.
all. Oh, but we'll fix it. We'll fix it. Oh, we've got to fix that. Blah, blah,
No.
blah.
Then you take the extra amazing part away of it. You know what? I reminisce about the years that I was a worship leader with my band, and things like that would happen with us as well. And the song would just be so
Sure.
better. And sometimes I'd sing in a different way in that section, maybe go in a alternative voice, and then you don't want to go back to the original sound, the original. And I remember I can feel when you talk about the band flowing. I remember how, when you play together with a band for a long time, they kind of start to learn to know your body language. So I had
Oh,
second, if I do this with my guitar, if I let it go down, they were supposed to go a little bit softer, and then I
yeah, yeah.
foot, and when I start tapping my foot, then we're gonna go up again and we're gonna do the chorus again. So oh my goodness, it's so amazing to hear that you guys play together so well.
Oh yeah. Oh, you just reminded me of something really funny.
Yeah,
I after the AC/DC tour, they played Donington.
yeah,
It's the big motor in Midlands,
yeah,
and Van Halen were on first, right?
yeah.
Before them, I should say. And anyway, so I was sitting on the side of the stage. I love David Lee Roth
Oh,
just from this one moment, right?
yeah.
People were throwing bottles of urine, Coke bottles
Oh
of urine. I
no.
mean, it's just what people do. They're crazy,
So
drunk.
odd.
I don't know why, but they do. Anyway, so and in the same way you're saying, because the band was they used to be a bar band, so they were very, knew what they're all. So
Yeah,
in the middle of the song, David Lee Roth just like, with his hands, goes like that to everybody. They bring
yeah.
right down. Then he gets on the mic and he says, you know, I saw you who threw that bottle. After the show, I'm gonna your girlfriend. and, he, the whole crowd just went out. I thought that's stylish.
Well, I think that guy had it coming because I mean, really, to throw someone with a
Yeah.
bottle with those contents in, my
Uh-huh.
goodness, that's bad taste.
Well, unfortunately, I. Okay.
And here we are back at the Meticulous Moments podcast. And Ant Glynne, the one and only Ant Glynne, has something special for you. That was incredible. My goodness. And when did you write that?
Oh, I've had it for a few years. I'm still working on it. I'm just looking for
Beautiful.
the right singer.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had it on a more like a heavy guitar sound, but I like it like this as well. It's like
Yes, I love that.
unplugged.
It's unplugged. Unplugged is the best. I love unplugged. And we were talking, and tell us a little bit more about your cat, because as you were playing, your cat was just loving the music, and surrounding herself with that good energy that you're putting out there. So tell us more about your cat.
Well, first of all, Stanley is my muse. Literally, he's my meow muse. Can you see him?
Hello, Stanley. Hey.
Sorry, he's in a bit of a compromising
Taking a
position
bath.
right now. he's licking his ass. Stanley, we're on camera.
That's
But
what cats do.
Yeah, I know. No, he's lovely. I love him. I've had him since he was a baby. Like literally, he fit on my palm of my hand.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. Absolutely
He went
wonderful.
missing for he went missing for 6 weeks when I went to England. We left him with some people who said they were going to look after him. He couldn't stand it there, so he escaped. And it was 30 miles away in Redondo Beach. I live in LA, and he was out in the wild for 6 weeks. And a miracle, we put some posters out, and this woman he found a carport, and he eventually, after a few days, he came out to this woman. He sort of, he needed food, and she started feeding him. And then she put a post on Nextdoor, which is a community thing, right? A picture, but she didn't. And then another person happened to look at the post and saw our poster with the number after 6 weeks, and then she suddenly called me. It's like a miracle.
It's a miracle.
He's back. He was very traumatized at first.
I can imagine. They become like children to us, and they're family members. My animals are family members, of course.
When we finally got him home, he needed 2 hours of cuddling. He just wouldn't let me go, and it took him about a month to recover. He was still but he's a survivor like me, so I guess that's great.
And I was just going to ask about that. We had a wonderful conversation, an in-depth conversation about a situation that you faced with your health. and how you really work through it. And I love the illustration that you used, about the two circles and how you really just digested that. And, later, the second part we'll also discuss, but let's talk about when you became ill. What happened? What were your
Oh, really?
and what did the doctor say?
Okay. Wow, they didn't have a chance. I mean, okay, so there I was in England, and I was having oh, I know, I remember. So first of all, I thought it was migraine because
Yeah.
suddenly, but there was a blind spot on the screen. Like say the word "the," it just wasn't. It was black. It was blank. I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, I've been looking at the screen too long. I'll be all right. But then it felt like a migraine. I had to turn the lights off. It really, everything on low. And I went to see my doctor, and funny enough, the same doctor or the same doctor and hospital where Rick Wakeman went when he had his heart attacks. As I was working with him at the time, it was really weird. But anyway, so first of all, he sent me, for an MRI, and then I had the MRI, came back, and he spotted these russet-sized potato tumors of 5 centimeters and 7 centimeters, one on my motor strip and one on my optic cortex. So I was having these wonderful, hallucinations, like, but I understood what was going on, but I still didn't believe it was cancer because there was also a spot on my lung. But I thought, if there's 1%, it's not. I'm going to keep that anyway. So to cut it short, I faced mortality. Thinking, okay, if I'm done, there's nothing I can do, and I was giving myself a pump up because I knew I was anyway. So and I have this little voice saying, I'm going to be all right. I'm sparring, like bouncing around, and this little voice on my shoulder going, or are you? Oh, okay. I ignored it 3 times. On the third time, I just swung round. And as I swung round, I envisaged a Looney Tunes cartoon with these little munchkins eating my brain away. And I said, well, if I'm totally done, nothing I can do, I faced like my chest and everything out. Universe, bring it on. I'm ready. And wherever, because I'd lost my daughter 5 years beforehand. So I said, wherever, whatever happens, I'll be with Natasha, where if there's something after life, we'll be together. And if there's nothing, we'll be together with nothing. And but by doing that, I quelled this fear, and it made me back to 100% resolved to live. It was, but it was just facing it and not being afraid. And accepting if I'm done, but I wasn't giving up. It was just letting go of the fear at that point. So by a miracle, then I rang Paul Reed Smith, who had no idea. He did pro celebrity golf tournaments, still does, with the cancer center at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. So I ring up Paul and I said, Paul, I'm ill. He says, wait there. And 2 minutes later, I'm on the phone. I got a call from Michael Hibbler, who then was the family and patient coordinator for the Sydney Kenmore Cancer Centre. So he said, he's given me all the, like, okay, first of all, how old are you, right? And okay, how healthy are you? Sort of, apart from this, I'm pretty good. Says, okay, you're a good candidate. What we do is, cleanse, take the poison out. Opposite to my horrible doctor in England, who was basically, giving me a death sentence, basically. Die slowly. He even said, don't bother changing anything. That's what was. It was. I mean, if I hadn't been having seizures going around my body, I would have. It's more like Monty Python. It was a Monty Python consultation with him. Anyway, so, and after that, I rang Paul. That's the little backstory. So Paul said to me, okay, wait there. This Michael Hibbler called me. And then after, assessing me, oh, you're a good candidate, I know who exactly I'm going to call. And he was talking about John Weingart, my neurosurgeon, Stephen Yang, my lung surgeon. And he said, but they're a bit precious. I'll tell them you're an international rock star. And he went, hang on a minute, you're a friend of Paul's and you're a guitarist. And the more he sort of, he was like, I don't know if you've ever seen Spinal Tap, but it was a bit of an Archie Fufkin moment. You have to see the relevance, but most musicians would really know that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the more I played it down, because I'm somewhat humble in these situations, it just broke the ice completely, because it was, we became very immediately connected, in a funny way. Humor is always the best thing in any situation.
Yeah.
So basically, and this was on a Sunday, or I think, it was a Sunday, in January, the 20th. Actually, no, it was on a Sunday in February, like the 20th or something, right?
Yes.
So I, after talking to him, I just booked, I had an ongoing reservation. Anyway, I got on a flight to America. I had to carry Paul's guitar because he just gifted me, so I had to, I couldn't, and I mean, I was so
wonderful
out of it.
Yeah.
I had a permanent migraine. I was carrying my heavy leather jacket, a big bag with my MRI scans in it, and the guitar, and anyway, I had to be led to the gate twice. I got lost, and at the time it was like just after sort of 9/11, so there was all security and captains and all British Airways, and they're saying, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I've just got a bit of migraine. Really, I had big tumors in my brain. They wouldn't have let me fly if I don't." But I knew I had to come to get, because in England I was going to die, definitely.
Yes.
So they were planning on me dying. So
wow.
I got to 7.5 hours later. I arrived. I was under a blanket all the flight because I just couldn't, Anyway, so Michael Hibley met me with a wheelchair, and he took one look at me, and this is afterwards. He said, "This guy's not going to make it." That's so. Yeah. So he locked me in a campus, an apartment on the campus, to stop me escaping. And
He was determined.
Actually, yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then in the morning he took me to see John Weingart and Stephen Yang, and then Paul Breeze Smith came and picked me up. He lives in Annapolis, so it's about an hour away. So he comes and picks me up, and at first it was just a plan of care, and I was going to fly back, but I collapsed that night in Paul's house, and I was running around, bare naked. And he's like scaring his family and everything. But I really had no idea what was going on. I just found myself. I needed to get into the bath with a shower and eat strawberries. That was the only thing that was taking this pressure away for some reason. Anyway, and then they had the paramedics turned up and took me to the local hospital at 4:30 in the morning, and they called my John Weingart, actually, Johns Hopkins, and they're saying, "What should we do?" They said, "Bring him in." He said. So John Weingart, I owe my life as well as Paul. So I got there, and I remember, like, I was unconscious most of the time, and when I woke up, I was in intensive care being prepped for brain surgery, emergency brain surgery. So 48 hours later, I had two neurosurgeons and a neurosurgeon's assistant do a 2-hour procedure to get both of them out, and then what amazingly, because they had me down for 50 grand for speech therapy. I didn't. I mean, I had the surgery on the Friday, and I was discharged on the Monday.
Yeah.
And I didn't really need any. Luckily, they did such a good job. And but then we had a month later, I had the lung surgery, which was the
Yeah.
cause of it.
My
And then,
goodness.
so, I mean, it was a miracle because literally I collapsed. I mean, if I hadn't got over there,
That's
I
it.
probably would have died because
Yeah.
in England at that time, the chances of recovering from lung cancer was 25% chance of survival. And in America, it was 45% chance
Wow.
of survival. So, and I was lucky enough to, have this wonderful friend, Paul Reed Smith, who I'm all forever grateful for.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then my happily separated wife, Karen Kachler, we'd already met at like music fair or something. So we were talking, and she basically dropped everything, came to look after me. And she was my angel. I mean, she took me when I was doing a whole brain radiation, and we had this like one of those fluffy pens with the feathers, and that was a
Yeah. Yeah.
scepter of health. And she was like blessing all the big radiotherapy machine and everything, and it made it like. And even when we were doing the chemo later, you know,
Yeah.
everyone else in beds getting their drips, all looking miserable, like. And
Yeah.
and she'd come into bed with me, and we'd go onto the sheets and I mean, just play, nothing, nothing bad. But I wasn't, really. But she made the whole thing like,
Yeah.
I mean, when I had my emergency surgery, and she was sending messages. I didn't even see them for about a week, but she was saying happy surgery day and all the sort of beautiful
Mm.
energy and just
Mm.
so she got me through that. I mean, I don't think it would have been a real miserable. I
That's
don't
it.
know. It makes so much difference. And secondly, I knew it wasn't my time. I mean,
Mm.
I just had a gut feeling. And luckily also I had very good genes. I've got great DNA, thank God.
Thank
Thank you.
God for
All those
that.
things.
You do. Because I mean, you went in on the Friday and you went home on the Monday. My goodness, after brain surgery. How often does
Yeah, yeah. Well,
it happen?
what I discovered is brain surgery is very intricate when you do it, but
Yeah,
it's much quicker to recover from.
I didn't know
I mean,
that.
with me as well. Well, the thing is, I mean, they could have actually, they were very careful. And, because what I discovered is when you're having brain surgery, they've got this like a wobbling thing because tumors wobble at a different frequency than the brain,
Oh,
right? So that's how so they go from the middle of the tumor, and
yeah.
they can't really go to the margin because then you're in trouble of maybe doing some damage, because especially
Yeah.
my motor strip and my optic cortex, it could maybe blind or
Mm.
so, and then just by a miracle, and then I had to have another little oh yeah, so a year later after the chemo, radiation, three
Yeah.
three I had three brain surgeries in the end. 3 weeks before I was going back to England to do a tour with Rick Wakeman, we had to take care of a bit of brain surgery because it was a bit of necrotic tissue around the surgical sites, because
Oh,
they'd been careful not to go too far. So I had another little scrape out of the dead cells that evolved from a scar. And so, 3 weeks later, I was on the long tour.
strumming away,
Yeah, it's just,
making music, getting the
yeah,
crowd excited. You're back. My goodness, what a
yeah,
comeback.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
And
I know so many. I mean, poor Lou Graham. He had a brain tumor, and it really knocked him out. I don't know how he's doing now, but I remember at the time, and I also had a friend who had small cell cancer, and
what's that?
he died because it's where you get it's small cell. It means you have 100 little growths in your brain, whereas me, I
Oh
just have
my
these.
goodness.
It's non-small cell. Yeah,
I've
it's
never heard of
so
that
I
before.
had. Yeah, well, I had all the. If you're going to have cancer, brain mets, I had the best. My lung that where it was my upper lobe this side, which is
Yeah.
you've got five in all, and the upper lobe is the smallest, and you
Yes.
can sort of do without it.
Yeah.
Right? So even that was, I think it really, what I felt like, it was like my daughter, Natasha, saying, stop smoking and get your ass over to America and carry on your career. Because, when she was 3, after the AC/DC tour, Malcolm Young's guitar tech, we became dear friends. He said, Ant, let's go back to LA. I know everybody. I'll get you sorted out. And I knew her through promotions as well. And I said, you know what? My daughter is with my first wife. I can't be on another continent. So I just came back and I did well. I worked with Mike Oldfield and, had good stuff. But it wasn't my real, well, you know what, though? I was so young at the time, I probably wouldn't be here because, I would probably, over excess,
I hear you.
So,
I hear you.
I was cheeky and, yeah. Anyway, so I'm so by she was also, having the cancer, it sort of, she was saying now, putting a gun up against the back of my head saying, stop smoking and get your ass back to America. Like 20
Good
years
for
later,
her. Good for her.
14 years later.
Wow.
Yeah. And
I remember.
so, so I've had this, it's a bit hard this last couple of days because it was her 26th anniversary and my mum passed away in April, the 7th this month. And but then my daughter, Karina, just got accepted in Occidental College. So it was like boom, boom,
Well
I mean,
done.
yeah. So, and now I'm over that, feeling sorry for myself and I'm just blessed again. And
That's
I know
good.
that Karina, Natasha's watching down and with me whenever I need, so
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. I lost my mother in 2020 to stage 4 brain cancer. And it wasn't
Oh,
a situation where I could deal with it for months because they gave us 3 weeks. Now, at that time, we had just gone into full lockdown in South Africa, and I was living 9 hours away from her. And we were going to be in
oh,
lockdown for 3 weeks. And when she went in, they thought she had an ear infection. And when they diagnosed her, she phoned me and she said, she called me Yoni. She said, Yoni, I only have 3 weeks to live. She's been diagnosed with stage 4 brain cancer. And
yeah,
I started crying. I was bawling my eyes out. I said, Mom, I'm on
gosh,
lockdown for 3 weeks. I'm not even allowed. No one in South Africa is even allowed to leave their homes. And she held
gosh,
on. And she held on for 3 months. And I was able to get a permit because I was a pastor, an ordained pastor at the time. And I drove up, I'll never forget, on the Monday night, I got the permit. And I said to the kids, tomorrow morning we are going to drive to Granny. And they packed their stuff, but we were also excited about seeing her.
yeah,
Everybody was up late. And that evening around, I'd say 11 p.m., I received a call to say that she was vomiting a brown liquid and they thought it was blood. And they were going to take her to the hospital, but she refused because she said if she's in the hospital with the COVID regulations, she
yeah.
won't be able to see us. So she didn't want to go to the hospital. And I jumped in my car. My kids were still awake, thank God. We threw everything in the car. And I drove 9 hours straight to her home.
Wow.
And when I stopped in the parking lot, I didn't even take the key. I just stopped the car and I just ran up the
Yeah.
stairs. As I opened that door and her face, she started crying uncontrollably, but there was nothing left of my mom. She was frail, she was thin, she was anorexic, she couldn't walk anymore. And you know what was the most wonderful part of all of that negativity and that sadness? She remembered me and, she could still speak. She couldn't hear anymore. But, cancer, we read about it and we see it in social media and we hear
Yeah.
stories about it. But your story is so impeccable because you survived that. You're a survivor.
I
You
know.
decided
Again, I mean,
it's gonna be.
I remember when sorry, but I remember, I mentioned when we were talking before, when I first met my oncologist,
Yeah.
I'd already been given a pretty good odds from my thoracic surgeon, like 30,
Yeah.
40% of being cured. So I went in to see my oncologist eventually, and with my lovely car and my happily separated wife. Now we've got a lovely daughter, Karina,
Oh,
um, who's 18 now. But anyway, so we went in, and first thing I said to her, so what's my chances?
yeah.
That's all. Thinking, she's going to say the same. And she said, 10%. I said, oh, what, being cured? She said, no, living more than a year. And
Oh
I
my.
teared up
Oh,
because I thought, oh, but you know what? Through my tears, I said, you know what? I'm going to be the 1% who goes on another 50 years.
that's
And,
it.
I'm still, I'm still on that track, and I may extend it a little bit.
Determination makes the world go round. You made a choice. You made a decision, and I want to
Yes,
add something. With music, I always teach people about energy, and I really align myself with the universe, my energy. So I'm aligned with myself, but I'm also aligned with the universe. And my energy
yes,
so important, and I always say to people, what I put out is what I give, what I put out is what I receive from the universe. And
yes,
you decided
absolutely.
in that moment that was not going to be your fate. You decided, well, I'm going to show them a thing or two, and you did, because you are here and you are still
Well,
right.
I just I had a gut feeling. I mean, it just it wasn't my time back in when I first. I really felt okay, this is bad, but I have more to do. I also, the first thing I did when I got back from the hospital, that found out there was something on my lung as well, which was pretty sure it was lung cancer
Yeah.
with brain mets. Um, uh, I actually first of all, I had a CEO talk with my whole body, every single cell. I said, okay, guys, we're going to be okay, but we have to meet the challenge halfway through. Like 50-50. It's no good just lying back and hope to be cured. No, we got to, in our intention, embrace the treatment, and which I
Yes.
did. I mean, they poisoned me, but I'm here. I'm grateful. I mean, when people say, "Oh, they lost their fight with cancer," it's usually the chemo that kills them. It's not the cancer.
That's what I just
It
wanted
makes
to
you so.
add. I'm glad that you added that so that I can elaborate on it. I will tell you that I saw what my mom went through, because they tried and they even did the radiation with a mask on her head.
Yeah,
She
yeah,
sent
yeah.
me
Me too.
photos. She sent me photos when she was going through that. It burned her face. It was
Oh,
burned. Everything was burned. And at some point I said to her, Mom, we know that you are going to pass away. We've accepted it. You've accepted it. Why are you putting yourself through this agony? It's too late now.
yeah,
You've made peace with it. You want to be with the Lord. And she stopped the treatment. And I have to say, when she went home, those last few weeks that we were on WhatsApp and phoning, and even the last 5 days that she was there, we had fun, and she didn't have those
yeah,
burns on her face and the nausea and all the other side effects. So essentially, they are putting poison in you to kill the cancer, which is a weed. Let's compare it to
yeah.
weed. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, my analogy is like, because they blast, because cancer cells are fast growing cells, right? 3 weeks, but so is your immune system, the marrow, the white blood cells. They're also all the essential, fast growing cells are there for a reason,
Yeah.
and so with chemo, the first thing it does is it knocks your immune system down, so you're susceptible to anything.
That's it.
I mean,
Any germ,
luckily, well, also,
virus.
pneumonia, any, and if you're in a hospital, hospitals are not very safe places.
No.
You know, we used to in the old days. Oh, he's going to be in hospital for 3 weeks to recover. Now they get you there out. They want you out the hospital as quickly as possible. You know, because they know. I mean, you know, Rick Wakeman again he was in an American hospital, and
Yeah.
he caught a Legionnaire's disease through the air conditioning.
Oh my goodness.
Nearly killed him. Yeah,
Now I want to ask
it's
you,
just they're not.
yeah, hospitals are not safe places. I agree. I mean, all the germs, you know, the viruses there that are being treated in the air. Some of them are airborne. We
I mean,
can't
it's not their.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not their fault. I mean, it's just the way it is. You know,
No, it's
you
just
know, you get a lot of ill people.
territory. Yeah, it comes with the territory. So I wanted to ask you, Anne, we had a discussion about the fact that something came back and you had another scare, and you touched your head and you felt an electrical pulse going through, and you were, I believe you were speaking to the growth. Tell us more about what happened there with
Yes,
the music that you.
yeah. Well, this was about 6 years ago. Like, you know, like 14 years on from, you know. So first of all, I thought I was having a stroke, and I was in bed for 2 days, like just, you know, feeling absolutely weird. So eventually I went to check myself in with my wife to the local Glendale Adventist Medical Center hospital, which is a really nice place. So they you know, we did an MRI, and
Mhm.
then the next morning I'd already overnighted it to John Weingart, in my original neurosurgeon,
Yeah.
and before that happened, uh, two neurosurgeons came and saw me, you know, in bed. And the first he said, "I'm not sure if it's going to work." And I said, "You know what? You can go."
Yeah.
you
Goodbye.
know,
No
you know. So
negative
he didn't
here.
give, he didn't exactly instill me with the confidence, right? And I, you know, and then this other guy came in, and he actually fired me. He didn't want because I was asking too many questions. He thought I was being belligerent because he's a bit, you know. Doctors can sometimes be a bit arrogant, you know. I will say. Anyway, so you know, there I was without any brain surgeon. Anyway, so I overnighted the, you know, the scan to John Weingart in Baltimore, and he called me in the next morning. He said, "Anne, I don't know what this is. It's not part of you. It's something that's invading into your brain cells, and we've got to do something about it within 2 weeks." So
Yeah.
I'm in a like a high anxiety state, trying to raise, like, you know, 60 grand to go back to Baltimore. And then in the end, he said, "Look, you know, I've met this uh, great neurosurgeon, you know, he called her the best in the West." And she'd actually treated lots of musicians' brain tumors. So I went to see her. But in the meantime, I I composed this like immersive, meditative music,
Yeah.
just from my, you know, and so I thought, oh, this might help. So I put the phone on my chest, and you know, it had. I made sure it had some value in all the registers, down to sub bass up to the, you know, every octave. It had something in it,
Yeah.
and so the first thing, when just putting it in my chest for a bit, on my chest for a while on the phone, it turned all these weird hallucinations into beautiful woodlands, and you know, I could actually follow it down the path. It was like it was real, better than CGI or anything, even a
Yeah.
movie, because it was like interactive. So that was like an amazing relief. And then when I got home, I used headphones to play the music over and over, and little by little it started taking my symptoms away. And it took, and I now I realized what it was doing. It was the low sub bass was massaging my brain, because I was doing left and right, so it's like getting a, you know, like a big,
Yes.
and then all the other was frequencies were getting into little nooks and crannies.
Yes.
Basically, after a after, I mean, so when I left the hospital, I had a CT scan, and
Mm-hmm.
then 5 days later, after using this method, I said something's changed. Went to
Yeah.
the ER, I had another CT scan. Now, this little tumor was like that, oriented, like a little
Yes.
cigar on one of my surgery sites, right? After 5 days of my music, it was like a little smile, like a baby, like that sort of shape.
It changed. I want you
A
to
little
repeat
smile, yeah.
what happened. What did the music do? Repeat to the audience, what did the music do? What did the soft bass do?
Okay.
It
Well,
massaged.
it massaged the brain and the little growth. So,
Yes.
because at first, this growth, like the brain's going, "What are you? What are you?" And the little breathing,
Yeah.
the little growth go, "What are you?" And they were wobbling at different frequencies, and they were not. They were like, but with the massage that was massaging my brain, they became much more relaxed, and they were okay with each other. And then and so I went when I'd already been to see this uh oh gosh, Julie, oh gosh, I should know her name. Julie, she's the director of the neurology department at UCLA. And Julie, oh gosh, I'll get it in the before. And anyway, Julie, her name is. And so when I went to see her, we sat down and I said, "Look, I have a feeling we won't need surgery." And she didn't give me a hard time. I said, "But I want you there as my scientist in case anything changes in a bad way." Obviously, so we were about to prepare for brain surgery, but then after 2 weeks of getting the MRI results, we had a call, and she said, "I was skeptical, but you don't need brain surgery anymore."
Oh, thank God.
And
Wow.
and then with no treatment at all, the little baby tumor slowly started it's gone now, but it took a year for it to disappear. But and yeah, so that the last night, going back a little bit, the last night I was admitted to the ER 4 times, and I was admitted to hospital 3 times in 2 weeks. The very last day, it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had a room with 2 beds, and sort of up to now I was on my own. And at 3 or 4 in the morning, this guy was coming on a breathing machine. Now, I didn't talk about my daughter yet, but my daughter I lost 5 years before cancer. Well, she was basically gave up her bed when a baby was coming at an emergency. We can go back at some, but just for reference, she was in the emergency room waiting to be picked up, and a baby came in on a breathing machine, so she offered her bed, and the nurse wheeled her out into the waiting room, and that's a whole different story. But sadly, they discharged her without telling the person who picked her up, or even calling me. She was under 18.
Yeah.
And she drowned in the bath an hour later, because no one had told her, or the person to pick her up, to keep her under observation. I mean, that's so the whole universe changed there. Nothing's been the same ever since then. It's like, it's a different universe, but thank God. But Natasha, I've got a little about her. Whenever I've got really, I mean, at first I went into ritual mode, but I was, anyway. But whenever I got like really depressed and everything, I just see her, or every time, with her arms folded, going, "Dad, what are you doing? We'll be together soon enough. Just go and have fun and tell me all about it and live your life. And I'm here." It's like just, and so I mean, it's very difficult, but there's some very sensitive times at the time. But on the last time I ever saw her and had to basically close the lid, which is the most scariest thing I've ever or ever will have to do ever. It's I slipped in a note. I wrote a little note saying, "Mere death will never break our bond." And that's, for me, that was the connection that needed to be, but it's if I think about it, it sounds, I'm talking about it like, oh, but it's obviously
It's
still with
very
me.
painful.
But
I want to ask you
yeah,
something. I want to ask you, there was a slip, there was a mistake at the hospital with her. She could have been saved. They didn't maybe follow protocol. They didn't notice. And I had the same thing. Yeah, I had the same thing with my mom. How did they not realize she had brain cancer until she had only 3 weeks to live? I mean, how does that happen?
Because,
how did you forgive?
Well, I mean, the guy who was the assistant administrator, I mean, he came and tried to, make everything okay. Now, it wasn't his fault that the thing happened, and it was really the arrogance of the neurosurgeon who went to assess her. I mean, and then he discharged her, and the registrar who called the yard rather than letting me know as she was underage.
Yeah.
The message to the yard was, "Oh, she's had a bump on the head, but she's okay to come home now." That was it.
Oh my God.
And Natasha had her head advice injury sheet in her little white plastic bag with her clothes and medication and this thing. They didn't even give you're not supposed to be responsible for your own health when when you've been knocked out for a few minutes.
Yes.
And the registrar was, I mean, there used to be a staff nurse was the person who be the registrar. She'd be really on the case. But now they have this, I mean, it's not her fault, but a little old biddy who wasn't a medical person at all. She was just like a receptionist type, So, it's shocking that something like this could happen. All they had to do was keep her in overnight for observation. She'd be alive. They wouldn't have.
Check again. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's protocol after you've been knocked out to keep you in for observation.
Yes.
It's but and the real political thing was she was training race horses in beautiful Arab, the thoroughbreds at Newmarket, which is the home of British racehorse, breeding and stuff. But then Cambridge College, Oxford and Cambridge, see the students, they get drunk on a Friday night, bash their heads because they're drunk on a curb or something. They're going to be like, oh, we look after them, we keep them in, and all. But the jockeys, I mean, the chief of the ER, actually told me, he was in tears, and he's going, there's an unwritten policy here. We don't, we think the jockeys are tough, so they don't. I mean, it's so discriminatory. They're all human people, especially my daughter. So anyway, we had a huge possibility of doing, or suing them and getting some changes. We had the guy who wrote the head advice injury sheet with, he gave us a report basically saying if she'd been kept in, she'd still be alive. Right. Then the day before the inquest, the medical industry got to him and he redacted everything he said the day before. And I foolishly didn't. If I just kept it to myself, no one would have known. But I sort of had this naivety. I sent it to the coroner, and then it became public domain. So our case, we didn't have one. But when the inquest came, we had a counsel with us, and everyone said, "No, I didn't follow protocol. I didn't read they basically admitted that they messed up." And then the guy I was telling you about, that Adam Day, his name is. He was the assistant chief, administrator. He came out after this obviously damning. Even the nurse who wheeled Natasha out, she'd resigned. She had a breakdown, and she wasn't going to turn up. She did turn up. That's how much. And anyway, it was. Anyway, yeah, bless his little cotton fucking socks. He said his sound bite. I believe sufficient care was given. Not all hospital visits end up with a happy ending.
Oh,
That was, and he then went on to become. And then he went on to become the Adam Brooks Trust, you know, the guy who was running but because of his caring nature. And I just saw him online now. He was at some event. He's no longer doing that anymore, and he's still around, and he's still as creepy as he was back then. You know what he's when he came in, when we were there, the second day off, no, the first day, he you know, we were in this waiting room. He came in to see us,
Yeah.
and the first thing he said is, please, please, if there's anything I can answer, please ask me. I said, well, why is my daughter dead? How about that? You know, and anyway, so it wasn't a very, I wasn't in a state to really lash out, because I was just in shock. But then, before he came in, we had the social worker who was the sort of their press person. She was really nice. She was very, kind and soft, and not, she just was there.
Yeah.
And then he came in, and after about half an hour, he said, "Listen to this. This was again. He was the wrong person for the job." He said, "Oh, by the way, is it okay if Jenny goes home? She's got two little kids waiting for her, Timmy and Jimmy and Timmy." It's like he's trying to appeal to my love of children because I've lost my daughter, and like how can he possibly be that insensitive? It's okay. I mean, like, not even if it's okay if she goes, that would have been okay. But not, then he added this crap, like, because she's got little Jimmy and Timmy waiting for mummy. I mean,
I hear these events and I think to myself, how do these things happen in the world? All the trauma that you've been through because of that.
well, he had no he was like a cheap politician. He had a like crappy jacket on, a tweed jacket with leather patches for it.
Yeah.
He no that like and he was so superficial, and then he gets voted as for his caring nature to be part of the Adam Trust. The runner, the chief executive or whatever it is. You know, uh, and I mean, I've been writing this letter for him I just didn't know how. And then eventually the other day when I got mad, I looked him up and he's now retired from it. But I'm still going to find a way just to send him a mail and say, I can't believe you actually asleep at night. I can't believe, you just try to make it all go away. And, because of my naivety, sent that, which I know that the medical national health got to this guy. The ambulance driver who picked up, Natasha in the very first place and got to safety into the hospital. An hour later, the same guy was called back and she was already dead back in the bath. And he said at the time, they never should have discharged her. And their counsel said, "Didn't you mean that you were surprised that she got discharged?" He said, "No, I said, full out, she should have never been." He had to take a week off after being a paramedic for 21 years and never, something, so, I mean, it's the national health, when they fuck up, they cover it up to save face and save jobs. I mean, those guys should have been retrained, demoted, and really, stick by. I mean, anyway, it was very political, because it was the night where the Conservatives lost to Tony Blair, Liberal, and so I had Reuters news agency calling me, but at that time I didn't know, I didn't want to. Damn, I mean, I instinctively I knew what it was, but I didn't want to. I should have just screamed and shouted about it.
Yeah.
If I mean, if ever it would happen again. But it was more important to me to not find out that there was something else going on, because she had some, like she fractured skull 6 years before and everything. But it really was down to, I mean, put it this way, after the inquest,
Yeah.
the verdict was drowning in about this much deep of water, you know. I mean, I think my theory is that she got up to get out, and then she slipped because sometimes you've got muscle pain, and you
Yeah.
after a hot bath you can, or she fainted because it was a hot bath. But she was laying with her head at the tap end, which you don't have a bath with the Victorian, bath.
Yeah.
You put your feet there, so
Yeah.
that uh,
No, they've
yeah.
been through so much
But
trauma
but
and pain. I mean,
there were so many things that could have saved her. So it was almost like God wanted her as an angel.
yeah,
That's the only way I can really justify spiritually.
yeah,
Now, obviously, on the earthly side, I mean, my whole universe split. I didn't when I heard the news because the cops came round and I thought my wife at the time, Lorraine, I thought, oh, what's she done? Because when they called me, I thought it sounded like they were coming round about something traffic thing. So I'm thinking, what's she done now? So I let them in, still, let them in, and I had a cup of coffee, and then suddenly the woman said, do you have a daughter, to Lorraine? Yes. And then within a split second, even before they said it, I just dropped my coffee, punched the window through, uh, and everything looked different. Didn't
yeah.
recognize anything. That universe,
That
my
anger
brain.
and that pain takes over. Yeah, that's what happened. It was horrible. It was
But
horrible.
what what saved me, because I know she loved my playing, so and about a month later I got invited to go to Frankfurt or the trade fair to play with 7 other musicians on acoustic,
Yeah.
and it was just the most, they were all so lovely and helped me, and it was almost like the 7 angels were there to give me some support, and you know and you know and then like a month or two later, I played with Slash at the London um, fair, and she, by the way, Natasha was friends with Ronnie Wood's daughter, so Ronnie
Oh,
used to take her to Ireland on holiday, and whenever she turned up, Ronnie used to like run around the house saying, "Natasha's here," and they
oh,
loved her, and
bestie.
they took her a couple of times to Ireland for 2 3 weeks, with the lovely horses and stuff, and you know. I've been trying to get hold of Ron because I never really, because at the time she was living with my first wife, so I mean, it was silly, but I never felt I didn't want to go in to meet him on my daughter's, you know what I mean? I thought I had a bit more, I should have actually done it, because so what, he actually, Natasha played some tapes of me playing Honky Tonk Woman. He says, oh, he
Oh
plays better than me.
my goodness. Oh my
So,
goodness.
I got this feedback,
Yeah.
but, and I try, but the thing is that Slash and Ronnie were close friends. They've been in a long time. So when it was Mick Jagger's 50th birthday party,
Mhm.
Natasha rode with Slash in the limo,
Oh,
and then when I got to play with him, like shortly 3 months after she passed, we dedicated "Knocking on Heaven's Door" to her.
oh, that's beautiful. It's one of my favorite songs. And I actually went into the studio. It's a lovely, it's a painful thing to honor the people that pass away. But it's also a beautiful thing. I went into the studio 2 days before my mom passed away, and because I knew it
Mhm.
was the end. And my good friend that always sings with me, he recorded Sasha Sloan with me, Dancing with Your Ghost, because the day
Oh,
you know that song.
no, but I'm going to look it up as soon
You're
as we
gonna
hang
look
up.
it up. It's so beautiful, and you can listen to it on my YouTube channel. And
Oh,
she
okay.
me. She asked me when she saw me. She asked me that first day. She said, "You need to do my funeral for me. You need to conduct my funeral." And I said, "Oh, what are you asking me?" And she said,
I know.
You need to do my funeral." And I honored her. And to make it special, because I knew she was going to pass away, I recorded that song. And you illustrated so many things that you've done for your daughter and that you would have done. And I just want to say, the love that you have for her is so evident. And you mentioned something very important. You are going to be together again. You are going to
Yeah.
see her again. And that's so beautiful.
And I sense her whenever I actually want to reach out. I always get
That's it.
like when I'm talking about listening to your body. Well, when I'm able to, because sometimes I get, I find it hard, but then when I'm on days when I have a start the day off with like the word gratitude or something like the first thing when I open my eyes, it sets my brain into a, more open,
Yes, that
receiving.
vibration, that frequency. Yeah, that's the truth. Now we've
You
talked.
just said, sorry, no, you go.
No, you
Okay. Well, I was just going to say, you mentioned something which I believe in.
go. Yeah.
Like what you put out there, you get
Yeah.
back.
Amen.
If you're complaining, you get crap back. And
Oh.
I read this in a really Harv T. Eker book,
Yeah.
Secret of the Millionaire Man, but it's so funny. It says, well, if you try not to complain for a week, now you'll still get residue crap because you become a crap magnet when
Crap,
you put out negativity, right. So but the lovely thing is, well, you might get a bit of residue crap because crap doesn't travel at the speed of light, it travels at the speed of crap. So don't worry, just keep going.
So give good
That
things
little,
out there, guys. Just positive energy. Just give the positive, and the
yeah,
positive will come
and
back. Yeah.
exactly another one, another little phrase I really like. What you appreciate appreciates,
Yeah, I love
right?
that.
So
Oh, that's beautiful.
it's like, if you don't care about money, it goes away. But if you're brilliant, I mean, that's just one,
That's
but
a wonderful,
anything else,
wonderful way to say it. That's the truth. That's the truth. And I love the
yeah,
fact that you have this amazing musical history. Let's recap before we go into what's next. Because you have this
yeah,
amazing musical history in your life. You just decided, the day before your 16th birthday, you're done with school, you're going to be a musician, you're going to go with your friends. And your mom, who's also a legend of note in the movie industry and in the music industry, your mom said, well, if that makes my son happy, let him go. And this journey
yeah.
started, and then you went through the tragedies, of course, that happened. And you got ill, but you decided to flip that script, and you decided, well, whether it's 10% or 40% or a no or a maybe, you are going to make it. And not only did you survive the first time, the second time, you actually took it a step further. This is very innovative because you addressed the growth with music, with frequency. And you actually went
Yeah.
as far as to change the shape of the growth, and then it just dissipated. And here you are today. I'm writing music. You're gonna do a lot of things. Tell us more.
Well, I mean, back to the wobbling thing. What I
Yeah.
realized happened, it just loosened everything up. The
Yes.
brain was able to get more comfortable. It's okay, and and it really was. I mean, it was amazing. And in fact, I turned into kinetic energy by putting a CD eventually against my ear, then the headphone. So it wasn't pure um, trans like a transforming, but the audio waves were stuffed against the CD. Now some of it obviously came out the little hole. That was the audio, but
Yes.
the most of it was forced through the CD, which made it more pure energy because it was like, it It was
Wow.
amazing. And but that night, after I got back, after that lovely 2-second pulse I had when I addressed the thing in my head at the hospital, as I mentioned, literally I felt the top half of my brain light up, and it wasn't like it was energy.
Yeah.
It was another cycle of healing from
Mm.
my daughter Natasha, because this little growth was, and then it went, it squeezed out all this beautiful light energy, which was a healing process. And then, over the following year, it just, disappeared eventually. It took a while, took a year, but I'd had, MRIs, and they were getting smaller, and I had no need for any treatment or anything. So that was amazing. And
Incredible.
uh, yeah,
I,
so oh yeah, I was going to say, oh,
yeah,
I'm sorry, can I just
yeah, of
quick? So the
course.
next day, I got home and I'm thinking, oh, so I thought, oh, I'm going to do my CD against my ears and headphone, right? And because I've been so charged up by this energy, it knocked me out for like 15, 20 minutes. And when I woke up, I couldn't move. I was awake. I mean, I was like, I could probably move my eyes, but that's all I could move. And I was thinking, oh my God, I've done it now. I've gone too far. I think I've fused my brain, and I can't. I'm like, oh no, and no one. I couldn't even open my mouth. So no one's going to know. I mean, maybe I probably could have used my eyes, but I was really afraid. I was on my own. I couldn't get to a phone or anything. I wouldn't be able to answer anything. So I
Yeah.
didn't. But then I remember this lovely earthing um, meditation from this lovely
Oh,
um,
yeah.
um, motivational speaker,
Yeah.
and Nurka, her name is. And she's a friend, I don't know her that well, but I mean, whenever we met, we just had instant contact. And so, I was, yeah, we became friends. Anyway, so I remembered this meditation. So I had to literally roll myself. It took me 15 minutes to sort of instinct trying to roll my body over
Yeah.
3-4 times to get on the ground and somehow sit up. And as soon as I'd got my tailbone on the ground and
Yeah.
upright, it's a discharging, so I was so charged up. I knew I had to ground myself to dispel, you know so
Mm.
after about 15-20 minutes, I was eventually able to stand up. And then I went
Very cool.
outside, and everything was so bright. The colors were so, it really, this, that's why I know it was a healing charge of energy, however you want to talk it. But it was
Yeah.
light with very condensed light. It was like,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, that's just
Wow.
going to say that.
I love that. I love that. I am speak to energy. I believe we're all made of energy. And I speak to
Yeah.
my good energy and I speak to my bad energy. And I do the following with my bad energy. If I see something, if there's something coming up against me, or there's a mountain or an obstacle in my way, then I address that
Mhm.
thing. I remove that negative energy. And I visualize how
Mhm.
to sort it out. And 99% of the time, the good energy wins, because it's all about our thought
Yeah. Well,
process. Yeah.
absolutely. And sometimes I think you can turn bad energy into good energy. I had a metaphysical experience like years before, well, not years, in 2000 and say 12.
Yeah.
And this is before, but I came back from this Millionaire Minds, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind free seminar over the weekend. And it was really empowering. I must admit, it was a
Yeah.
bit of a marketplace for the second and third day, because everyone was doing presentations, and then they were actually applying what they were teaching us, and they getting everyone to rush to the back and sign up for this and that. We did a little bit. That's what they was teaching us to do, but they were using that technique on. But the first couple of days were amazing. So I was trading, options. So when I got back, I was so focused and feeling great. Um, and I had a little puff, and then suddenly I experienced like say 1,000 at least little black, probably diamond shapes. I thought they were pentagons, but I've got anyway. And they were they were spinning round like in a bat cave, like this way,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Anti-clockwise.
Yeah.
And they were, I felt they were down really low in my brain, and at first I was like, "What the? What's that? What's this?" And then my first instinct was a little bit of fear, but then I realised no, this energy, because they were spinning around, they're lost, they're confused, they're not bad. So
That's it.
my first instinct was I just addressed them and said, "Go up with the light, go to the top of my head, and you can
Yeah.
escape." And as they said that, I felt literally like someone was putting their hand like this, as because they were giving a real centrifugal force. So I
Yeah.
really felt like, it was really tight. And eventually they, got away. And after that, my head felt at least almost felt like it was half as heavy as it was before.
My goodness. All these
So
these synchronicities in your life. You're a special
yeah,
person, and the universe has a special calling for you. And I know what a part of that calling is because we had that discussion. And he's going to, with Meticulous, write his life story and, just take the stages and talk and use his testimony and change the world. And that is such an honorable thing. And, coming together here and making a difference is really important. So tell us what's up next
well,
for you. What's your vision?
well, I mean, I'm so happy that we've met because I've been wanting to write a book. Even if it's just a small first version of a
Yes,
story, it doesn't have to be a novel. We
yes,
just start, but then I can get on the speaking circuit if I've got
yes.
a book.
That's it.
And I want to talk about Rock'n'Roll Rollercoaster. I've had pretty good of one of them,
I like the
and
title.
mixed with and also talk about cancer, talk about grief. In fact, the other way around, talk about grief, which led me to have cancer. But it actually, it was the best thing that's ever happened to me to deal with the grief, because
That's the most important part. Yeah.
when I first had this conversation with Michael Hibbler, at
Yeah.
first, I was so like relieved there was a way out rather than being stuck in England and probably dying. I was able to sob because it'd been 5 years since I'd lost Natasha. So after this call, I was so like, wow. And so I was sobbing for her because I hadn't been able to cry for a few years. Sobbing, tears don't mean anything after a while.
I,
I couldn't, it's what I
yeah.
mean. It's almost
Too
felt,
painful.
and I couldn't cry. It was just, I'd sobbed so much. It didn't have the same value. It was natural, but then anyway, so the first thing, it was the relief of having someone actually going to help save my life, right?
Yes.
And then after I sobbed for a couple of hours, but the last half an hour I was sobbing with joy because I realised
Wonderful.
finally I could do something because I perceived my tumours, even although they were there and there, I perceived them in my eyes. They were just like big lights, that really were just on all the time, whether I could shut my eyes or not. And Natasha, she had a kick when she fell on the horse. She did have a kick, her helmet was on, but it hit and it pushed her brain to it's like a
Oh,
contrapuntal or something,
goodness.
the word.
Yeah.
You get a kick and it pushes your brain forward. So she had like enlarged cortex and everything, but hers were in the same place that I envisaged mine. So I
Mm.
suddenly thought, wow, spiritually we can get rid of these injuries together. Now that didn't kill her, but
Oh,
that probably knocked her out and was caused
yeah.
swelling. But
Oh,
if they just kept, if she hadn't had a bath, or anything, they would have just kept her under observation and she would have been fine. That was,
yeah.
that was without any doubt. So after 5 years of not being able to do anything, at least I felt spiritually we could do something together,
Yeah.
and that's why I was sobbing with joy. Yeah, so
Beautiful,
what else,
beautiful.
you
And
know?
now you are ready to tell a story. You are ready to tell your
Yes.
story, and take it to the stages and change the world and give people hope. Can you imagine? Because that's what happened to my
Yeah.
mom. Can you imagine the people that go, the patients that go to the oncology and they're told, there's nothing they can do for you. You should just go home. Or you only
Yeah.
have
Yeah. Well, that was,
a chance to make it.
sorry.
Or, 30, 40%.
Well,
You're going to help so
well,
many people. Yeah.
just like my lung doctor, the one who said, "Don't bother changing anything."
Mm-hmm.
But literally, he actually, and he was like the sheriff of Nottingham in Robin Hood. He was signing death warrants for everybody.
Oh, horrible,
Seriously, I mean,
horrible.
he just wrote people off like me. He wrote me off. He actually said, I said after I was asking him, he just talked at me for like, I asked him 3 times and he just talked over me,
Oh,
because I'd had a biopsy
yeah.
of my
Oh,
lung, and all I wanted to know was the results before he said anything. And he was going blah 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 blah, and I asked him, he just ignored me. I literally, I don't know if I would have, but I wanted to kick the desk over, literally
yeah,
just
yeah,
what. So eventually I just said, stop. What were the results? And he
yeah.
said, inconclusive, right?
That
And I
means he
said, well,
doesn't know.
yeah, yeah. Well, it was, yeah, which is, it's okay. I mean, that's fair enough. But then I said, what about surgery? And he said, fruitless,
Oh,
fruitless.
death
And
sentence.
he carried on to say, well, they'll only grow back and you'll end up chopping half your brain away. And I looked at him right in the eye and said, are you a neurosurgeon? And he went, no. He was a chest doctor.
Oh,
So I basically walked out, and that's when I called Paul Reed Smith in America. I
and you
said,
said,
this, this, yeah. Well, I said, I'm ill, and nothing. I had no idea his connection. He was just my influential friend in America, and I looked up the survival rate for lung cancer in America. So he was my dear friend. We'd only met a few times, but we really had a
yeah,
bond.
that's so
And
beautiful.
and and I got him on the phone, and then boof, he set me up with the chief, the family patient coordinator at Johns Hopkins Sydney Kennel Cancer Centre. Look, what a bleeding
That's
miracle! And
wonderful.
then within a week, I was there for emergency
Absolutely.
brain
It doesn't
surgery.
happen that fast. Sometimes you wait for weeks and months for an appointment. And
Yeah,
I'm just glad
yeah.
that you are
Well,
safe and sound
well,
and that
Paul,
you're healthy and, yeah. So
no,
tell us.
no. I mean, it's taken a while to get, I've got other things, I put on more weight than I expected, at least I didn't, I didn't wither away. But
Yeah.
I withered the other direction a bit too much. So that's my goal, is to do more exercise, get out, and,
Yeah.
just change my life. But, yeah, and I mean, as Keith Richards once said, I'm glad to be anywhere.
Oh, you're glad to be alive, to be able to do the things that you love.
Exactly.
Exceptional
Exactly.
and a musician as well,
And
and father.
yeah,
And what I want to
yeah,
ask
I've got my
you, yeah.
yeah, go on,
Now I want to
carry on,
ask
John.
you, what's your plan? What's next? What is
Okay,
the
well,
goal?
I'm at stage one of creating this animation,
Ah,
inspired by Karina. I mean, I had the
beautiful.
first
Your other daughter.
notion of it when she was born.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's I've done a treatment for it. Um, I'm sort of working with someone, but he's so tied up with all other things. I'm hoping that he'll come round, but it's taking a time. But in the meantime, I'm just letting it sit. But I've been playing a little bit with AI, the GHT or something, that
Chat,
program, and
chat.
I
It's called
put the
it's called
yeah,
Chat
yes,
GPT. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And so I created the first scene. Now, my vision for the first scene, because it's about humanized mice, two mice. One's
Yeah.
from a very aristocratic family, and the neighboring farm is Lewis, who's like, he's an inventor, but he's also a farmhand. He's got, visions of being a cowboy and, musician, you know, but they're like childhood friends. The parents are really nice. They don't care about class. They just want their little daughters to be happy, and they can see. So the first scene is a POV from outer space, going
Yes.
zooming in, zooming in, zooming, right? And eventually these two mice, human mice, they're laying in a cornfield looking up at the stars. And when it gets really focused in, they focus on their eyeballs, and the reflection is the shooting stars they're looking at. And
Wow.
they're like talking about. So yeah, so that's the opening scene. And so I have that. Then I put that description into this chat GBT.
Yes, ChatGPT.
Yeah, yeah. And suddenly it came up. I mean, I already had the ideas, but it came up with, it's pretty obvious if you're saying looking at shooting stars. So they came up with it came up with a whole page and a half of conversation talking about the shooting stars. Oh, their dreams. Each one of them with possible dreams. And I had that idea, like, well, that's like Lewis is going, that's your dreams, and she's going, Karina, actually, my daughter's name is going to be the girl, and she's saying, oh, that's your dream, and then they say, oh, look at that one, that's our dream, and it's all this.
Oh,
They're like 7 years old, so they're
I love
like,
it.
got
Already
all
inspiring. Yeah, you inspire even the
and
young ones. Yeah.
oh yeah,
It's such a beautiful time with you, and just discussing the life that you've lived up to this point, your morals, your values, the ups and the downs. And I mean, the ups were amazing, but the downs were really down. And here you are, and you're still making it. And my final question to you is, what words of wisdom do you have for someone in the audience?
focus on the positive and try and wake up every day, say the word gratitude. It seems to, for me, it sets your brain in that mode. So, my thoughts go on from that. And the days I forget, if I'm not feeling physically well, it's horrible without that. And I think, I know why. I just have to remember to do that. I mean, that's one thing I would love to share. Also, you know, we all have fear, and around grief, around cancer, around what's going to happen next, and there are good reasons to worry about things, but ultimately, as what Mark Twain said, worrying about something is being concerned about something that would probably never happen.
Yeah, that's the truth.
You can change. Your life can change in a day.
Yes. I'm going to be
Um,
honest with you.
and
Today was a significant day in my life. And it's strange that you mention it because I said that to someone that I met. And you're correct. It brings me back to something that you said about one choice, one decision, one mindset, that one move that you took, that one action that you took changed your whole life. It changed the whole trajectory of your life because you decided
yeah,
you're gonna
I
survive.
mean,
And here you are.
exactly. And I would say also, if you've got any ideas that are, that that you're afraid to try out in life,
Yeah.
go for it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've got a job and you don't like it, but you've got a great idea, I'm not saying you give up the job, but you certainly you use every moment of free time to focus on something that would, your dream you have. It may or may not happen, but if you don't do it, you'll never know.
Yeah. That's the truth. That is the
And
truth. If you don't do it, you'll never know. And I wanna add something that I always post, and you'll know this quote. Wayne Gretzky said, "You miss
so
100% of
yeah,
that you don't take. Wayne Gretzky, the ice hockey player, said, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. If you don't try
I'm
something,
sorry.
if you
Yeah,
don't,
yeah, we're hearing you. Yeah.
Wayne
Can you
Gretzky,
just roll back a little bit?
Wayne Gretzky, the ice hockey player, he said,
Yeah.
you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take.
Yes, exactly.
100%.
It's like, I mean, it's like keep trying. It's like, old Robert Bruce, back in Scotland, try again. Because I mean, also look at the history with Edison. He was interviewed about, how did it feel like having so many failures? And he said, no, I looked at it as a 1,000-step process.
That's it. Elon Musk had I don't know how many $1 billion rocket that went up, and the rocket exploded, and he was like, oh, well, we'll just go back and we'll fix it. And I commented, because one of my friends mentioned that in a meeting, and I commented and I said, that's why he's successful, because of his outlook on life. Other people would have,
Well,
called a meeting with their private bankers and be upset about it, but he was like, oh, well.
Well, what happened? What happened actually? It failed 3 times, and he ran out of money, right? But he said, "I know how to fix it," and he more or less, bankrupted Tesla. Luckily, it's still going. He used all that money he had and took the biggest gamble ever. But in his mind, he knew how to fix it, and that's what the final. It did work. I think he had a recent. But I mean, but yeah, you've got to really take risks in life.
I love
Now,
that.
I wouldn't say I wouldn't risk. I mean, it depends, how strongly you believe you can do this, rather than just having a dream. But but the minute you give up on something, you've lost the game. So, whatever capacity you follow it,
yeah.
I mean, some people give up because they think, "Oh, I don't," and they listen to the subconscious, your brain going, "You'll never do it. You've already failed every time you tried." Then we've got all these things going on with our brain trying to
All
protect
the
us.
time.
But we could say, "Thank you for sharing. I'm still going to go for it," and you can help, because the brain is there to protect you. It's not there to, promote you or support you. It's like, "Oh, I don't want to be a it's an ever listening, ever talking, babble noise, and some of it makes sense, but a lot of it is just to stop people change, because it likes to keep comfortable. It's the
that's the truth. That's the truth. Oh, and it's been such a wonderful time with you, getting to know you better, hearing your story, all these wise words of wisdom coming to us throughout the session. And I just want to thank you from the Meticulous Moments podcast for taking your time to be a guest. And this is not the end of the road for us. We're still going to do your book and your story, and this is just the beginning. So thank you from me personally. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you for having me, and I really appreciate you. I really enjoyed your story too, and I think there's a lot of crossover, communication with similar and varied, But I'm so glad that David hooked us up, and we're going to help him as well. And I look forward to that too. He's a wonderful person too. Misunderstood a lot.
Shout out to David Peace, our friend, who's also going to be writing with Meticulous his life story and going to bring it to the world. So very excited for these two beautiful gentlemen to be in my Meticulous family, because you're not just a friend now, you're family. And I just pray God's richest blessings over you, and keep moving and shaking the world and making it a better place. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much. We'll see each other soon.
Absolutely. God bless you, my friend.